Alright, this video is titled Can't Spar Against Crazy People. So these is just interesting, very interesting. Recently I've been putting out videos about real fighting, about challenging people to real fight, and things of that nature. And then immediately I had a few opportunities to engage in real combat, and I'm analyzing the situation. And this is something that I've come to understand based on these experiences so far. I cannot spar against crazy people, because what I say is somebody that lacks self-control. So I'm offering this type of sparring, this full contact sparring potentially full contact sparring, and potentially a real fighting type of experience for scientific purposes and for martial arts purposes, also for artistic purposes, scientific purposes and artistic purposes, creative purposes. I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm not doing this out of lack of control. I want to remain in meditation while I spar. Now, the person that I'm sparring with, if it's full contact, if I'm clearly at a higher level than this person, then if this person loses control, then it could be contained, because I'm in control, because I'm in control of the entire situation. If it's just me and him and just a camera person, then what I also come to realize is the referee becomes the camera. The camera serves to be the referee. It serves to be the control. Because as you're sparring, in the back of your mind, there's video on you. So that's basically like the police officer that's monitored, having that camera on is gonna dictate his decisions. But if that camera's not there and nobody's looking, then there's a lot of chances that there can be corruption. And he might do something that's gonna not uphold the values of what police officers are supposed to uphold. So the camera essentially puts him in check, the police officer, and also the camera that is filming the sparring situation or the fighting situation serves to be the control, where in the back of your mind hey, anybody could be watching this after. It could be lawyers, it could be judges, it could be police officers, law enforcement, it could be the general public, it could be your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your friends, your relatives. Just anybody could be watching. And if it's not justified self-defense, or it's not justified in where, say, somebody calling stop saying, hey, that's enough, and then you keep going and going and going, and you end up killing and murdering the person that you're sparring with or that you're fighting with, then that could be evidence of, involuntary manslaughter or murder or aggravated assault, or whatever the case may be. So the camera is extremely important. I wouldn't be engaging in any type of full contact sparring or real fighting without the camera. Not just for that reason, but also for reasons of artistic creation. Like people that create movies, why would they go through all the creation process without filming it? Go through learning all these scripts and doing these performances and all this great things, but then they don't even film it, and then nobody's even watching. It's not live performance. It's not filmed. It's not live. It's like it defeats the purpose. Like the whole purpose of this type of artistic creativity is getting it to be recorded, so then it can be shared. It's like a writer. Why are you gonna write an entire book and then delete it? So the camera is extremely important, for those purposes. in addition to others. Also analyzing the combative situation to improve upon your technique and skill. Alright, so when you spar against a crazy person, when I say by crazy, it's someone that doesn't have control. So if the person doesn't have control, but I am in control of the entire situation, I'm more skilled, I'm stronger, I'm faster, I'm just more capable, then that can be contained. But the thing is, what becomes very dangerous is that the person is highly skilled himself. You know, he's highly trained, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, and then he loses control. And you're no longer the one in control of the entire fighting situation, then that's when it becomes very dangerous. And that's something that I would not be willing to engage in unless it's absolutely necessary, where it's something that I didn't invite to happen, but it happened anyway, and then I just pretty much go into survival mode. You know, and then that's no longer like something that would be beneficial for myself, for the art, for the school, for my students, for my audience. So this has to be approached in a very intelligent way, a very wise way. So people that are watching my videos, they gotta be careful if they decide to engage in this sort of sparring. You have to do it with the right people. You know, people that are mentally there, people that have control. Like, you're not fighting out of anger. You're fighting out of technique, out of meditation, or you have control. So meaning, no matter if you gotta tell yourself when to stop, or the person you're sparring with has to tell you when to stop, or the teacher that's there can tell you when to stop, or when other people tell you to stop, you stop. But people that are crazy, it's like they lose it. Like, they're not even in control of themselves anymore. It's like something else takes over, and then they lose control. And in this sort of situation, that is not safe for anyone. So I know I have control. I know that I have compassion. I know that I'm not gonna hurt somebody more than necessary. But the person that I'm sparring with, if they don't have any control whatsoever, then I have to make sure that I am the one whom, you know, I'm confident enough that I can control this person even if he loses control. But if the person weighs 100 pounds more than me, and he's like super big, super strong, just his size alone will make it difficult to control him if he loses control. So then what will end up happening is I would have to resort in potentially lethal techniques to gain control of him. And then what ends up happening, I could essentially take a person's life when it wasn't necessary, because I'm the one who invited this person or asked this person to engage in this sparring experience. Or fighting experience. You know, so a lot of it is control. You know, so I'm still interested in going further with setting up arrangements where the sparring is going to be more realistic, but it has to be with the right people. You know, So these are things that it got me to think about, analyze the situation, and to essentially, you know, as far as going as of it occurring outdoors, it might have to be more of a secluded area where there's not too many onlookers, so then the police don't get involved with the situation, because essentially it could be perceived as disorderly conduct, or I've even heard that charges could be brought upon for the situation. So it might have to happen indoors. So it's an agreed upon fight situation. It's an agreed upon sparring situation. And it has to be with the right people. And that's pretty much what makes the difference between a martial artist and like just a fighter who just loses it, just has no control. Because if the fighter has absolutely no control, then the martial artist might have to take the life of this fighter to protect his own life. And in that situation, obviously, it's not a benefit to anyone. So the fighter's like, hey, they lose it. They just can't control themselves. The martial artist ends up having to be in protective mode, survival mode. But when two martial artists are sparring or fighting, there's control on both ends. And it becomes an artistic expression opposed to a violent expression. Now, if a martial artist is sparring against a fighter who loses control but is not that skilled, then it could still be an expression that can be analyzed, interpreted, expressed for educational purposes and also as demonstration purposes of how a martial artist can eloquently, gracefully handle a dangerous situation but still protect the safety of the fighter who has lost control. So meaning, an example is if I'm fighting somebody who is not as skilled as I am, not even close, or even close, but he's just not at my level, then I don't need to take his life away. I don't need to use excessive force, but I can still contain him, control him, stop him from hurting me, and also protect his well-being as well. I don't mind engaging in that. I don't mind engaging with the fighter of whom I know, who I have great confidence that I can contain even if he loses control. I don't have a problem sparring and fighting against other martial artists who also have control themselves. But the dangerous thing is sparring and fighting against a fighter who has no control and whom potentially may be more highly skilled than you are. So that's my situation. I don't want to run away from going further. You know, it's just difficult because when you know that you're more skilled, you still don't want to hurt the person too much. You don't want to break anything. You don't want to break his nose, break his tooth, break his jaw, because then there's going to be medical bills. And you're going to feel bad. So the situation is what I plan to do is engage in full contact, allowing the person to strike with whatever he wants to strike with, and then potentially trying to handle the situation with full contact within my techniques as well, but then try not to break anything. Try not to break the ribs, try not to break the nose, try not to break the teeth, but still stop this individual from hurting me while I contain him. Like, he may be trying to bust up my nose, bust up my teeth, but I'm at a level of skill where I'm not allowing that to happen, and then I am striking him over and over, in which to stop him, but then still not break anything. And it's more challenging, but if there's also an agreement that if I do break something, that he's okay with that, because that's what we agreed upon engagement. So if he breaks something within me, or if I break something with him, then there's just, hey, that's what happens because we both agreed to engage in this way. And there's nothing to be upset about, because we both agreed that this is the type of sparring that we're going to engage in. But honestly, of course, I don't want to have anything broken within myself, so I want to set myself up to engage with minimal potential to injury for myself, because of my perfection of the technique of which I practice. Basically what it boils down to is you just cannot engage in full contact sparring or real fighting with just anybody. It has to be the right people. And people that don't have control. These are the people that are pretty much labeled as crazy people. Like, they just lose it. And these are, especially when they have firearms and they got weapons at their disposal, they become a threat and a danger to society because they don't have any self-control. They don't know between right and wrong, right? So if you take the firearm away, you take the weapon away, and then their own body becomes a weapon, they can be a threat to society if they don't have self-control. So the bigger the threat, the more skill, the stronger, the faster, the more highly trained, they become a bigger and bigger threat. And those are the types of people that I cannot spar with, because I am not willing to purposefully engage in a situation where I might have to take this person's life away in order to gain control of the situation. I'm just not willing to do that. But if this dangerous person that lacks self-control just attacks me for no reason at all, and I have no choice, then that's just what I have to do. So I could only engage in sparring, especially full contact sparring, with people whom I feel I could handle. Because this is not just, like combat sport where they're matching people up by weight classes and skill levels. This is something where I have to determine myself based on who I'm interacting with whether or not I can handle this individual if he loses control. I have to assess it based on my experience. And plan accordingly. People that also are famous, people that have a lot of money, it's more likely that they have control because they don't want to lose everything that they have over something like this. But people that don't have fame, don't have money, they're more likely to lose control. Because they have nothing to lose. So a lot of it is a person's heart. If the person has a good heart, then he's not going to take advantage of a situation, overly take advantage of a situation, even though he can. And that's what really makes the difference between like a martial artist and a fighter. Martial artists, they don't lose control. They're in control. They're in meditation. They have anger, but they don't let anger control them. They're in control of the anger. Fighters are individuals who don't have control. They're guided by anger. And they can be very violent people, and once again, when it escalates to the point where the fighter loses complete control, the martial artist, if he's more highly skilled, very much highly skilled, then he could protect the safety of the fighter while he controls him. But if the fighter is really, really skilled and the martial artist is right there with him, but maybe not at that level, then he might have to take the life of the fighter. Because he has no other choice at that moment. Because he has to protect his life. So, that's the situation. And I just want to let the people know, so if you engage in sparring yourself, you gotta be careful who you deal with. I want to represent real fighting. I want to represent real martial arts, but I don't want to represent violence and a loss of control. I don't want to represent the fighting that might happen in prisons. I want to represent artisticness, control, gracefulness, sound execution of technique, just perfection of a craft, perfection of an art. When real deadly techniques are being expressed, but the person's perfection of his way, his method, is able to take him away from danger and control the situation. And in order to demonstrate this part of my art, it can't be with just anyone. It's got to be the right people. You know, maybe just people that are humble enough to admit that they're just not at that level. And they don't let anger to overcome them, in which they lose control. You know, it's kind of like somebody who plays basketball and then they lose a game and then they can't control their anger and then they come back and they start shooting guns. That's the type of lack of control that I'm talking about, that is prevalent in fighters. And these types of people, it's hard to help these people. You know, the type of people that lack self-control. You know, they're a danger to society. So, a martial artist has self-control. He knows when to stop. You know, he doesn't need other people to tell him when to stop. He knows when to stop. You know. So these are things that I learned very quickly, within just a couple days. And as people train in the martial arts, as they're developing, these are things that need to be contemplated upon. Because I'm talking about unarmed combat, the science of it, the perfection of the way to survive in unarmed combat, and the way to perfect that game of unarmed combat. But as soon as weapons get involved, everything changes. But there's people out there, people might call them sore losers, or people that are just, they cannot handle embarrassment, or they cannot handle humiliation, they cannot handle, losing, they cannot control their anger and their temperament, they cannot control their emotions, and they just lose it, where they see you, they're willing to wait till you fall asleep and they'll kill you, or they wait till you turn your back and they'll hit you with a bat in the back of the head, or they just want to grab their gun and kill you because they just can't handle public humiliation, or whatever the case may be, embarrassment. There's people that just are crazy. It's not martial arts at that moment. It's not skill at that moment. It's just they're willing to do whatever it takes to get back at you, because you made them feel less of themselves. And these are the people you gotta be very careful with. These are the people that you should not engage in this sort of combat with. These are not the right people. These are the people you need to watch out for. So these individuals are the ones that you only fight when you have to, and you don't ask them to fight. You don't want to fight them. But if they come after you, then you just have to take care of them. And it is very unfortunate, but combat sport and this culture is breeding people to lose control. They're rewarding people to lose control. And it's developing very dangerous people within this society. And that's not martial arts. Martial arts is about, a lot of it is control, self-control, when it comes to the combative situation. Being in meditation, being in an awareness. Expressing your techniques to a high level. But that's what I wanted to share. And without actually having to engage with this certain individual, I've learned a lot from the experience to help me for the future, to protect me for the future. Martial artist needs to know when to engage, when not to engage. He needs to know what he could handle and what he can't handle. And he needs to protect his safety. And this element of real sparring, real fighting, it's very hard to express. It's very hard to express on camera, but I still have confidence that it can be done in the right way, with the right people. And I'll continue to put effort to try to make that happen through my expression. And that's it.